Carolina breakfast platter, egg scrambled soft, extra biscuit, please.
Sir, this ain't a soup kitchen.
Don't eat the grits.
What did he put in them?
I don't know, but
Do you treat everybody this way, or only the ones who look like me?
You got a problem?
I can call the cops right now.
What threat did I make? He's dangerous. Look at him.
Ma'am, you're gonna have to wait.
Mr. Coleman. My name is Marcus Coleman. I'm the founder, owner, and CEO of Sunrise.
I didn't know.
Taylor Briggs, Denise Carter, you're both watching.
Keep watching the story and follow Mr. Marcus Stories for more powerful moments.
Y'all smell that. Something just walked in off the sidewalk. Tyler didn't even glance up from his phone, just curled his lip toward the door like he'd smelled spoiled milk. Denise leaned over the counter, snickering behind her hand. Sir, this ain't a soup kitchen. You got money, or you just wandering in out of the heat? The man in the faded gray hoodie said nothing. He walked forward slow, hands loose at his sides, like he had nowhere else to be and all day to get there. Hey, I'm talking to you, you deaf or just slow? The man's eyes moved to the menu board above the register. His voice came out low and even. Carolina breakfast platter. Eggs scrambled soft, extra biscuit, please. $12.40. You sure about that? He set a 20 on the counter without a word. No flinch, no scowl, nothing behind his eyes but quiet. Those two had no earthly idea who they'd just spit on and what it was fixing to cost them before the sun went down. That morning had started quiet, the way most mornings did for Marcus Coleman. He woke at 5:15 in his house off Wentworth Street in Charleston, South Carolina, a house that was big but never showy. All clean lines and warm heart pine floors, photographs lining the hallway like a paper trail of a life he'd built with his own two hands. One photo showed a 24-year-old Marcus standing in front of a tiny storefront diner with a hand-painted sign that read Sunrise Griddle, Grand Opening, 2004. Another showed him shaking hands with the mayor at a ribbon cutting. A third was a framed magazine cover, the words above his photograph reading, From Dishwasher to Owner, the man behind 40 Southern diners. He walked past all three without looking. He'd seen them 10,000 times. In the bathroom mirror, he studied himself a moment, then reached for the gray hoodie hanging on the back of the door. Worn jeans, white sneakers with a crease pressed into the canvas from age, not fashion. No watch, no ring, no cologne. In the garage, a black Range Rover sat beside a 2011 Honda Civic with a dent the size of a fist in the rear bumper. He took the Civic keys off the hook. This was something Marcus did twice a year. No warning, no schedule. He called it walking the floor. He'd dress like a man with nothing in his pockets and step into one of his own 39 locations, just to see how his staff treated people the world had taught to expect less. Before he backed out of the driveway, he clipped a body camera, no bigger than a shirt button, inside the hoodie's chest pocket. 40 minutes east, in the corporate office downtown, Renee Foster was already watching the feed come through on her laptop, a legal team on standby in the next room. Marcus pulled the Civic into a strip mall lot in North Charleston at 9:08 that morning. Through the windshield, he could see the diner's interior, black and white checkered tile, red vinyl booths, a jukebox in the corner playing Old Soul on a loop he'd curated himself 20 years ago. He'd built that space to feel like his grandmother's kitchen in Orangeburg, warm, safe. A place where a man in torn boots could sit next to a man in a three-piece suit and nobody would think twice. Inside, the diner was alive with a Saturday crowd. A young black woman sat near the window with two small children, coloring on paper placemats, no ring on her finger, no second chair pulled up for anybody else. A Latino father sat alone with a toddler asleep against his shoulder, working a spoon of grits with his free hand. Two college kids shared a stack of pancakes by the jukebox. Behind the counter stood Tyler Briggs, white, late 20s, leaning against the back wall with one earbud in, scrolling his phone, his uniform shirt half untucked. Beside him stood Denise Carter, white, early 30s, second register, whispering something that made them both laugh. Through the kitchen pass-through window, a woman named Yvonne Price watched all of it. She was the morning cook, black, mid-50s, 6 years at this location, her hands steady over the flat top even as her jaw stayed tight. She had filed 2 written complaints about Tyler and Denise with the regional office. Both had vanished into a drawer. The regional manager was Randy Briggs, Tyler's uncle. Marcus stood just inside the door a moment, taking it in before he stepped up to the counter. That's when Tyler opened his mouth. "Gotta be careful these days," Tyler said, loud enough for the nearest booth to hear. "Never know with some people. Marcus said nothing. He watched Tyler punch the order in, fingers moving fast, too fast. He caught the screen before it flipped to total, $12.40 for the platter, tax included. Then a third line that had no business existing. Convenience handling fee, $2.95. Total, $15.35. What's the handling fee for, he asked. Tyler didn't look up. Standard charge. Everybody pays it. I've eaten at other Sunrise griddles. Never seen that on a receipt. Tyler planted both palms flat on the counter and leaned in, his voice dropping into the kind of low that dares a man to say one more word. Maybe those locations run it different. Here, that's what it costs. You want the food or not? A woman in the next booth glanced over, fork frozen halfway to her mouth, then looked away fast, pretending she hadn't heard a thing. I'll take the food, Marcus said. Tyler made change off the 20 and didn't count it, just shoved the coins across with the back of his hand. 2 quarters and a dime rolled off the counter edge and spun in circles on the tile before going flat. Oops, Tyler said, a lazy smirk pulling at his mouth. Denise pressed a hand over her mouth, a muffled laugh slipping through her fingers. Marcus bent down without a word, gathered the coins, and slid them in his pocket. He carried his ticket to a booth near the kitchen window and sat, and under the table he sent a text. Fake handling fee on my order. $2.95, not in our system, keep recording. Confirmed, Renee wrote back 4 seconds later. Legal's watching the feed live. The diner hummed on around him. Forks scraping ceramic, low conversation, the hiss of the grill through the pass window, Sam Cooke drifting soft off the jukebox. The smell of syrup and coffee grounds hung warm in the air. Marcus folded his hands and waited. 7 minutes later, a white couple who'd ordered after him got their plates. Denise carried them out gentle as newborns, set them down soft, smiled wide. Y'all enjoy now. Their eggs were golden and steaming, their biscuit split and buttered thick, their grits piled high with a pat, melting slow into the center. Marcus was still waiting. 5 more minutes. 12 total. Denise finally dropped his plate on the table with a thud that rattled the fork. No words. She walked off without a glance back. His eggs were dry and rubbery, the edges browned like they'd sat forgotten under a heat lamp. His biscuit was the heel end, barely warmed. His grits were a thin gray smear at the bottom of the bowl, not enough to fill a single spoon. 2 booths over, a white man his own age worked through the exact same platter, fluffy and golden and full to the rim. Same kitchen, same cook, same price, a different plate entirely. Through the pass-through, Yvonne watched his food leave the counter and her spatula stopped mid-flip. She'd cooked that order herself, soft scramble, center-cut biscuit, a bowl filled to the brim. What sat on that table wasn't what she'd made. Marcus picked up his fork, cut into the eggs, chalky and cold in the center. He chewed once, set it down, and pushed the plate an inch forward. He didn't complain. He didn't wave anybody over. He just sat, watching the room, filing every detail away in silence. The bell over the door chimed again. A young mother walked in this time, mid-20s. A diaper bag over one shoulder, a toddler balanced on her hip, exhaustion sitting in the lines around her eyes, the way it does when a woman's been doing this alone a long while. She stepped up to the counter. Just a coffee and whatever the cheapest thing on the kids' menu is, she said quietly. Her card came out worn at the corners. Denise looked at the card, then at the woman, then back at the card, slow enough to make a point of it. No man with you today, she said. Not really a question. Must be nice, ordering off the dollar menu and letting the government pick up the rest. The young mother's face went still. I'm paying for this myself, she said. Sure you are, Tyler muttered, just loud enough. Denise slid the coffee across without a lid, and it sloshed over the rim onto the woman's wrist. She didn't apologize. The woman wiped her hand on her jeans, took her tray, and found the farthest booth from the counter, where she sat with her toddler and didn't look up again. Marcus watched all of it, his jaw tight around a swallow of lukewarm coffee. Then the door chimed a 3rd time, and an elderly woman stepped in slow, one hand bracing the frame for balance. She wore a pressed floral dress and a small hat pinned at an angle, the kind women wear to Sunday service, a thin gold chain resting at her collarbone. Excuse me, dear, she said softly to Denise. Could you tell me what the soup of the day is? Denise kept wiping the register screen. 5 seconds. 10, 15. The woman stood with the patience of someone who'd waited like this her whole life. Excuse me, she said again, a touch louder. Denise finally looked up with a long theatrical sigh. Ma'am, I cannot understand a single word you're saying. Speak up. She'd been speaking clear as a bell. Everyone within 15 feet had heard her fine. I was just asking about the try the kids menu. Tyler cut in without turning around. Simpler choices for simpler folks. Denise laughed through her nose, a small ugly sound. The old woman's fingers tightened on her purse strap. Her chin dipped slow toward her chest, not in anger, in the quiet, rehearsed way of someone who learned decades ago that certain rooms weren't built with her in mind. She turned and walked out without ordering. The bell chimed soft behind her, a sad little note nobody bothered to catch. Marcus set his mug down. His jaw had gone tight as a fist. He pulled out his phone. "Renee, tell me you got that." "Every second," she wrote back. "She's a regular, been coming for years." "Not yet," he typed. "I need to see the whole picture." He walked to the restroom and back, past a hallway lined with framed photographs of Sunrise Griddle's earliest days, the first location, the first staff photo, the first newspaper clipping, frames he'd chosen himself for every one of his 40 diners. On his way back, the kitchen door stood cracked a few inches. Yvonne stood just inside, spatula in hand, apron dusted white with flour, her dark eyes locked onto his through the gap. "Don't eat the grits," she whispered. Marcus stopped cold. "I saw what he did," her voice trembled. "Right before your plate went out, his hand went into that bowl. I don't know what he put in there, but I saw it." A chill crawled down the back of his neck. "I've tried reporting them," Yvonne went on, the words tumbling faster now, like water breaking through a crack. "Twice. Wrote it all down myself, handed it to the regional office. Both times, nothing. He's Tyler's uncle. My complaints just disappear." Her eyes were glassy, not crying, just the worn-down look of a woman who'd carried something too heavy for too long, completely alone. Marcus looked at her steady. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I hear you. I promise you that." She nodded once, fast, blinked hard, and slipped back behind the door. Marcus returned to his booth. The grits sat untouched, glinting dull under the fluorescent light. He pushed the plate to the far edge of the table and picked up his phone one more time. "Renee, full legal standby. Call the health department. Pull every complaint filed at this location for the last 14 months. Already ahead of you," she wrote. "Team's moving." He set the phone face down. His posture hadn't shifted once. His voice hadn't risen, but behind his eyes something had turned over. He wasn't just watching anymore. Marcus stayed in that booth another 40 minutes, ordering a second coffee just to have a reason to sit. What he saw wasn't random. It was a system, running quiet and steady week after week, and nobody upstairs had ever bothered to look. A black father walked in, holding his son's hand, the boy maybe 7, backpack on his shoulders, eyes wide at the jukebox in the corner. Tyler rang up their order without a greeting, without once meeting the man's eyes. The total came out $4 over the posted menu price. When the father asked about it, Tyler shrugged. "Prices went up last week." They hadn't. Marcus knew every price on that board, because he'd approved it himself. "Ain't got a mama with you today?" Denise said to the boy, not unkindly exactly, but not kindly either, the way people say cruel things while telling themselves they're just making conversation. "She's at work," the father said evenly, sliding his card across. "Must be tough, doing it all on your own," Denise said, and something in her tone made it sound less like sympathy and more like a verdict already reached. The father didn't answer. He just took his tray and led his son to a booth. And Marcus watched him set his jaw the exact same way Marcus's own father used to, back when Marcus was that boy's age and there was nobody left to raise him but one tired man doing double shifts. Then a Latino woman ordered sweet tea to go. Denise filled the cup half full, snapped the lid on, and slid it across without a word. 3 minutes later, a white teenager ordered the same tea. Denise filled it to the brim with a smile. "There you go, sweetheart." Marcus pulled out his phone under the table and opened the calculator. Based on what he'd watched, the fake fees, the inflated totals, the shorted portions, he put Tyler's skim at somewhere around $200 to $300 a shift. With Denise, the feline, after each customer left, so the drawer balanced clean come closing. It wasn't sloppy, it was organized, and it had clearly been running for months. Then the door swung open hard. A young man walked in, college age, a backpack slung over one shoulder. Tyler straightened immediately and pointed. "Bag stays up front, store policy." There was no such policy. Sunrise Griddle had never had one, not at any of its 40 locations. Marcus had never written it, never approved it. It didn't exist. The young man hesitated, looked around, then slid the backpack off and left it by the door. 15 seconds later, a white man in his 30s walked in, carrying a leather messenger bag, and strolled straight past Tyler to a booth. Tyler said nothing, didn't even glance at it. The young man saw the whole thing happen in real time. He turned to Tyler. "You didn't ask him about his bag." Tyler's grin dropped. He stepped out from behind the counter, closing the gap until they stood barely 2 feet apart. You got a problem? Because I can call the cops right now. They love dealing with guys like you. The young man's jaw tightened. His eyes dropped to the floor. When his food came, he grabbed it, snatched his backpack, and walked out without another word. The bell barely made a sound. Marcus set his coffee down. His hand was steady, but his knuckles had gone pale around the handle. He stood up, walked to the counter, every step measured and calm, his sneakers near silent on the tile. Do you treat everybody this way, he asked, or just the ones who look like me? The diner went quiet. A fork stopped scraping somewhere behind him. What did you just say to me? Tyler said, squaring up. Denise picked up the store phone, holding it like a prop, finger hovering. Should I call someone? I'd like to speak to your manager, Marcus said. Tyler laughed, short and sharp. I am the manager on shift, and my uncle's the regional manager, so good luck with that, pal. Marcus nodded once and turned to walk back to his booth. You don't like how we run things? Tyler called after him. Door's right there, nobody's keeping you. Marcus sat back down and said nothing more. And that should have been the end of it. But Tyler wasn't finished. He picked up the phone and dialed, his voice sliding into something casual and practiced. Yeah, hi, I got a customer here getting aggressive, refusing to leave, making threats at my staff. Can you send somebody out? Marcus hadn't raised his voice once, hadn't moved toward anyone, hadn't threatened a soul. He'd asked one question. But Tyler was building a story, and Denise stepped out to help him sell it, her voice pitching loud and shaky for the room. Sir, we asked you nicely to leave. We don't want any trouble. 2 customers near the window pulled out their phones and started filming. An older man in a trucker cap shook his head slow. The young mother with the toddler quietly gathered her things and slid to a booth farther from the counter, pulling her child close. 4 minutes later, a patrol car pulled into the lot, lights off. Officer Dale Hendricks walked in, mid-40s, broad through the shoulders, his eyes sweeping the room before anyone said a word. That guy right there, Tyler said, already moving toward him, gesturing at the booth. Been harassing my staff, refusing to leave. Had to call, genuinely worried about everybody's safety. Officer Hendricks looked at Marcus, who hadn't moved, hands still folded on the table, coffee half gone in front of him. Sir, I'm gonna need to see some ID, Hendricks said. Marcus reached slow into his pocket and set his license on the table. Hendricks picked it up, read the name, looked at Marcus's face, looked at the license again. I asked one question about the service here, Marcus said, calm and even. I haven't raised my voice. Haven't threatened a soul. Haven't refused to leave. Hendricks looked around the room. The 2 customers filming hadn't stopped. The man in the trucker cap caught the officer's eye and shook his head again. Slow and clear, saying more without words than most people manage with a whole speech. Nobody in that diner backed Tyler's story. Not one person. I don't see a disturbance here, Hendricks said, his tone cooling several degrees. I'm gonna need to talk to both of you separately. Tyler's confident look cracked, just slightly, like a man realizing the script in his head might not play out the way he'd rehearsed it. And it was already too late for that script, because through the front window a black SUV had just pulled into the lot. And the woman stepping out of it was about to change everything. The bell chimed one more time. Renee Foster walked in, navy blazer, white blouse, heels clicking sharp on the tile, a tablet in one hand and a leather folder in the other. 2 men in black polos followed her, the Sunrise Griddle logo stitched small over the chest, corporate security. Every conversation in the room dropped to a murmur. Ma'am, we're in the middle of a situation, Tyler said, chest puffed up, still riding whatever was left of his nerve. You're gonna have to wait. Renee didn't slow down. She walked past the counter, past Officer Hendricks, and stopped in front of Marcus's booth. Mr. Coleman, she said, loud enough for the whole room to catch. We have everything on the feed. Legals reviewed the footage in full. We're ready whenever you are. Tyler fell open a little, his eyes darting from Renee to Marcus and back. Marcus stood, unhurried. He reached up, unzipped the hoodie halfway, and revealed the tiny camera clipped inside the pocket, its lens no bigger than a button, recording every second since he'd walked through the door. My name is Marcus Coleman, he said. I'm the founder, owner, and CEO of Sunrise Griddle. Every location, every menu, every paycheck. He paused. Including yours, absolute silence, no forks, no grill hiss, no music. Just the fluorescent hum and Tyler's breathing getting louder by the second. Tyler's face went from red to white in under 5 seconds. Wait, that's not, I didn't know. You didn't know what? Marcus said, still calm but iron underneath now. You didn't know the man you insulted, overcharged, and had arrested built this place from a single skillet and a $500 loan. You didn't know the man whose food you tampered with signs your paycheck every 2 weeks. Tyler had nothing. His mouth hung open like a door with a broken hinge. Denise's hands shook against the counter. She pressed them flat, and it didn't help. Renee turned the tablet so the room could see, split screen. On the left, Marcus's body camera, every insult, every smirk, every fake fee punched into the register, captured clean. On the right, the diner's own security footage, angles Tyler and Denise had apparently forgotten existed. Tyler pocketing cash after voiding fees, Denise helping cover it. Tyler's hand hovering over Marcus's grits before the plate went out. The elderly woman mocked and turned away. The young mother, coffee sloshed on her wrist without apology. The single father questioned about his son's mother in a tone that had no business existing at a breakfast counter. The college kid forced to surrender his bag while a white man walked past untouched. 4 months of it exposed in 4 minutes. Officer Hendricks watched without moving, his jaw tightening. When the tampering clip played, his hand drifted to the notepad on his belt. My uncle, Tyler, said, desperate now, reaching for the only lifeline he'd ever known. Randy Briggs. Call him. He'll sort this out. Randy Briggs, Renee said, cutting him off clean, was placed on administrative leave 45 minutes ago. Legal's already in contact with him about suppressed employee complaints and falsified reviews. She let that sit. There's no one left to call, Tyler. Tyler's knees nearly buckled. He caught himself on the counter edge. Denise let out a choked sound, half gasp, half sob. I'll need a copy of that footage, Officer Hendricks said to Renee. The food tampering specifically. That's a potential felony under state law. You'll have it within the hour, Renee said. Marcus stood in the middle of his own diner, surrounded by the wreckage of 2 people whose world had just folded in under 3 minutes. He didn't gloat. He didn't raise his voice. He just looked at Tyler and said quietly, you had a good job. A steady paycheck. Customers who trusted you, and this is what you did with it. Tyler said nothing. For the first time all morning, he had absolutely nothing to say. He broke first, his whole body sagging, his hands sliding off the counter. Mr. Coleman, I swear I was just having a bad day. It was jokes. I'm sorry, a bad day, Marcus repeated. We've got footage going back 4 months, Tyler. 4 months of fake fees. 4 months of stolen cash. 4 months of people humiliated for the color of their skin or the ring not on their finger. 4 months of Yvonne Price filing complaints your uncle threw in a drawer. That's not a bad day. That's who you are when you think nobody's watching. Denise stepped from behind the register, tears streaming. I didn't want any of this. Tyler told me what to do and I was scared of losing my job. Renee opened her folder and laid 3 time-stamped screenshots on the counter. This is you laughing after an elderly woman left in tears. This is you voiding a fraudulent charge while Tyler counted cash behind you. And this is you telling the young mother she must be nice, letting the government pay for her coffee. She looked Denise in the eye. You weren't a bystander, you were a partner. Denise grabbed the counter and sobbed. Nobody moved to comfort her. Marcus straightened. Tyler Briggs, Denise Carter, you're both terminated, effective immediately. Gross misconduct, theft, discriminatory conduct, health code violations. Final checks will be mailed. You are not to return to this or any Sunrise Griddle location. I'll need both of you available for follow-up, Officer Hendricks said. The tampering footage alone is a potential felony. Tyler walked toward the door with his head down, flanked by security, his footsteps slow and heavy on the same tile he'd stood on all morning like he owned the place. Denise followed, still crying, clutching her purse. The door swung shut. The bell chimed the same cheerful sound it always made, but this time it landed like the period at the end of a very long sentence. A few customers started clapping, slow at first, then louder. The man in the trucker cap nodded once toward Marcus. The young mother wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Marcus turned toward the kitchen. Yvonne stood behind the pass window, spatula still in hand, flour still dusting her apron. Her face changed now, watching the locked door swing open for the first time in years, almost afraid to believe it was real. Yvonne, he said gently, walking to the kitchen entrance. You tried to do the right thing twice, and the system here failed you. That ends today. I'd like to promote you to shift supervisor of this location, effective immediately. Every complaint you filed is now part of a formal investigation. Your voice mattered. It always did. Her spatula slipped and clattered against the steel counter. She pressed both palms over her mouth, and the tears came. Not the panic tears Denise had cried, but the deep, quiet kind that only surface when something you'd stopped believing in finally happens. The story didn't end when Tyler and Denise walked out that door. In a lot of ways, it was just getting started. Over the next 2 weeks, the internal legal team brought in an independent auditor to tear the North Charleston location apart. Every receipt, every register log, every voided transaction, every personnel file, every backup of security footage. What they found was worse than even Marcus had braced for. Tyler's fee scheme had been running 14 months straight, not weeks, not a few bad shifts. 14 months of fake charges, inflated totals, pocketed cash. The total stolen came to $41,360. Denise had been directly involved in at least 16,000 of it, voiding transactions and keeping the drawer clean and close. But the rot ran deeper than two cashiers. Randy Briggs, Tyler's uncle, regional manager over this location, and 9 others across the Low Country, had received 3 formal written complaints about Tyler and Denise's conduct, dates, details, signatures. All 3 had been buried in a locked drawer nobody ever opened. Yvonne's 2 complaints were among them, handwritten and completely ignored. Randy had also falsified Tyler's performance reviews for over a year, and on paper Tyler looked like a model employee, punctual, professional, recommended for promotion. When confronted by corporate attorneys, Randy's only answer was, "He's family. I was trying to give him a chance to grow." 14 months of theft and discrimination, and he called it a chance to grow. The Charleston Police Department moved fast once Renee delivered the footage. Within 72 hours, detectives had cross-referenced the body camera and security footage with the auditor's financial records. Tyler was charged with theft by taking felony food tampering under state law, filing a false police report, and civil rights violations tied to discriminatory service practices. His bond was set at $30,000. He couldn't make it. Denise was charged with accessory to theft and conspiracy to commit fraud, released on her own recognizance, ordered not to leave the county. Randy was charged with obstruction, falsifying business records, and conspiracy to commit fraud. He turned himself in on a Tuesday morning wearing a pressed suit and a blank expression that said he still didn't fully grasp how his nephew's behavior had become his own criminal case. Meanwhile, the story had already slipped past the walls of that diner. One of the customers who'd been filming posted the clip that same Saturday afternoon, and by Sunday night it had crossed 3 million views. By Monday morning, a local station picked it up. By Tuesday, it had gone national, and one clip looped endlessly across every feed in the country, the quiet, steady voice of a man in a gray hoodie saying, "I'm the founder, owner, and CEO of Sunrise Griddle, including yours." Marcus held a press conference 2 days later at corporate headquarters downtown, standing behind a podium with the company logo on the wall behind him, the same logo stitched into the polos his security team had worn walking into that diner. He announced 3 changes across all 40 locations. First, mandatory anti-discrimination training for every employee, cashier to regional manager, completed within 60 days. Second, a confidential complaint hotline reporting straight to corporate, bypassing regional managers entirely, so no complaint could ever be buried in a drawer again. Third, a customer advocacy fund, seeded with $400,000 of his own money, to support anyone who experienced discrimination at any food service establishment across the Low Country. Then he said something that made the room go still. "There was a woman who came into my diner that morning," he said. "An elderly woman in a floral dress and a church hat. She asked about the soup of the day, and 2 of my employees laughed at her until she turned around and walked out." He paused. "Her name is Eleanor Hayes. She's been a Sunrise Griddle customer for 6 years. We found her through our loyalty records. I called her myself last night." His voice softened. "She'll receive a lifetime dining pass to any location in the country, and she got a personal apology, not from my PR office. From me." He mentioned one more thing before he stepped away from the podium. There was a young mother that same morning, doing her best with a toddler on her hip and a card that worked just fine, and she got told she must be nice, letting somebody else pay her way. And a father raising his son alone got asked, more or less, where the boy's mother had run off to. Marcus looked straight into the camera. Being a single parent isn't a character flaw. It's one of the hardest jobs there is, and it deserves the same respect as anybody else standing at that counter. Both of those families have been personally invited back on the house for as long as they want to come. 3 months later, the cases went to trial. Tyler was convicted on all counts, the felony tampering charge carrying the most weight, prosecutors laying the body camera footage alongside lab results from the grit sample Marcus had preserved and handed to police that same afternoon. The judge called it a calculated pattern of cruelty dressed up as casual indifference. Tyler was sentenced to 3 years in state prison, ordered to pay full restitution of $41,360. Denise took a plea deal, guilty to accessory charges, 18 months probation, 200 hours of community service at a local food bank, and a permanent mark on her record that would follow her into every job interview for the rest of her working life. Randy was convicted of obstruction and falsifying business records, sentenced to 1 year, and permanently barred from holding a management position in food service anywhere in the state. Corporate also filed a civil suit for reputational and financial damages, which settled out of court. 12 affected customers, identified through register logs and loyalty records, joined a formal civil rights complaint with the state's Commission on Human Affairs. The case was later cited in a statewide training module distributed to over 2,000 food service establishments. The system that had protected Tyler, covered for Denise, and silenced Yvonne got dismantled completely, publicly, permanently. And it all started with one man in a hoodie ordering scrambled eggs. 6 months on, the North Charleston location looked like a different place. Not the walls, not the checkered floor, not the jukebox still playing soul on a lazy Saturday loop. Those stayed exactly as Marcus had built them to last. What changed was the feeling in the room. Yvonne Price stood behind the counter now, not hiding behind the pass window, not whispering warnings through a cracked door. She was the shift supervisor. Her name tag said it, her posture said it louder. She greeted every person who walked through that door and meant it every single time. The staff around her were new, and they smiled because they wanted to, not because a hidden lens might be watching. Every Saturday morning at 9:10, an elderly woman in a floral dress and a small church hat walked in without hesitating at the threshold anymore. Eleanor Hayes. "Morning, Miss Eleanor," Yvonne would say. "Your usual?" "Yes, baby, the soup and some of that cornbread if you've got it." "Always got it for you." Eleanor sat in the booth by the window, the same one she used to sit in, before 2 cashiers made her feel unwelcome in her own neighborhood, a lifetime dining pass tucked in her purse pocket like a badge of honor. The young mother came back too, most Saturdays, her toddler a little taller now, and nobody ever asked her again who was paying for it. The single father brought his son in on Sundays after church, and Yvonne always slipped the boy an extra biscuit and told him it was on the house. No explanation needed. One late spring Saturday, the door opened, and a man walked in wearing a navy suit and polished shoes instead of a hoodie. Yvonne looked up, her eyes going wide, and then she smiled, the kind that starts somewhere deep and takes its time reaching the surface. Marcus Coleman crossed the checkered floor of his own diner, and she came around the counter and hugged him without a word. He hugged her back. Neither one of them said anything for a long moment. Neither one of them needed to. He stood outside afterward, looking up at the sign he'd designed himself 20 years back, when this whole thing was just a dream held together by a used skillet and a $500 loan. He thought about the 14-year-old version of himself, washing dishes in a diner that looked a lot like this one, in a town not so different from this one, back when some days the owner wouldn't even let him eat what got left on the plates. He'd built Sunrise Griddle so that every person, whatever they looked like, wherever they came from, whoever they had or didn't have waiting at home, could walk through that door and feel like they mattered. What Tyler and Denise did was a betrayal of that mission. What Randy did was a betrayal of trust. But what Yvonne did, refusing to stay quiet even when nobody listened, that was the reason the mission survived at all. The people who abuse small amounts of power are always the ones most afraid when real authority finally walks through the door. And the people who stay silent when they see something wrong, sooner or later, they become part of the wrong. But the people who speak up anyway, even scared, even when the system's broken and the complaints keep disappearing, those are the people who end up changing everything. So here's what I want to know. Have you ever watched somebody get treated differently, at a restaurant, a store, a job, just for how they looked or who they were raising alone, and what did you do about it? Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one. If this story hit you the way it hit me, smash that like button. Share it with somebody who needs to hear it. And if you're not subscribed yet, come on, you already know what to do. I'll see you in the next one. This one's simple. Who you are when nobody's watching is the only version of you that actually counts. Not the smile you save for your boss, not the handshake you give the important people. The real you shows up at 9 in the morning on some random Tuesday when you think nobody cares and nobody's checking. And here's the part most folks never learn in time. Somebody is always watching eventually, one way or another. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but the truth has a way of finding daylight. Every shortcut, every lie, every person you look down on because you figured you'd get away with it, it comes back around. Not because the universe is magic, because people remember. And one day the wrong person remembers at exactly the right time. So do yourself a favor. Be the same person in every room. Treat the man in the hoodie the way you'd treat the man in the suit, because you never really know who's standing in front of you. But more than that, do it, because it's the right thing, whether the cameras are rolling or not. Like, share, subscribe. Real stories, real justice, every week. And remember, the cameras don't have to be running for the truth to find you. It always does. Thick Limmer. This story is a work of fiction created for entertainment and reflection. Any resemblance to real persons, businesses, or events is purely coincidental. Names, places, and specific details have been created for this narrative.